Hi, I'm Kelita, and welcome. Today, Richard Mayhan from New Hampshire is going to be interviewing me on the topic of releasing the deep, dark secret. Richard is a counselor and advocate with the Potter's Workshop, and also with the new Facebook page called Releasing the Deep, Dark Secret. So we want you to sit back, and we hope that this will open up some avenues for you as we dig a little bit deeper into the subject of releasing the deep, dark secret of childhood sexual abuse. Okay, Richard, you're on.
Thank you, Kelita. One thing I thought maybe we would start by saying why we're doing this. I know you alluded to it there, but we had created the Facebook page, you and I, in cooperation with Catherine Darnell from the Potter's Workshop. And our feeling was, as people started to go to the Facebook page, we're advocates. We wanted people to engage the material, which was a video for Deep Dark Secret that you and I had collaborated on, and then a video of you on a morning talk show where the host interviewed you about your life experiences, and both of us had the feeling that we could go further with the interview, and obviously this is a better format for doing that. So is that what you're feeling that we're going for, Kelita?
Yeah, let's go in depth, and I'm willing and open to share more of my experience in that whole area in hopes that we can help more people.
Tell me why you're willing to do that when so many people are not.
Well, I think number one is that because I have been through so much healing in this whole area of my life, I truly think that I've been prepared and equipped for such a time as this to be able to just show that healing is possible, and that by being open and facing these things head on, that other people are encouraged and inspired, and that for me is my mission.
Can you tell me what has been your healing? What does that look like for someone who has not done it?
Well, it's a long journey. It's a road that continues, and I know that my healing will continue, until the day I leave this earth. For me, my music has been such an integral part of my healing, and I think the real healing started in me when I finally was able to share the information with someone about what had taken place when I was a preschool girl. So the journey for me began with the honesty, and not just the honesty, but coming to that realization that there was something that took place.
So was there a period of time where you did not realize that something had taken place, and then what is this something that you're referring to?
Well, the something that I'm referring to is being molested by my older brother. I'm thinking around 5 years old at the time. I remember I was not in school, so I was under the age of being in first grade. And this happened on a repeated basis. How many times? I don't recall. But for years after that period of time, and it could have gone on for a year or two, I'm not sure. We did move from that farm, and so, and my brother was 10 years older than me, so he was off to college when he was 17, 18. So that is when it occurred, but I don't have a recollection of those years after that of being in touch with what took place. I feel that for whatever reason and however it happened, those memories were buried very deep. And it wasn't actually until I was in my later teens that it all started coming back, and I don't even remember what brought it back, what triggered it back, but I just know that there were memories there that were way more than just memories. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think I shared it with a close girlfriend of mine when I was probably about 17 or 18 years old.
Let me ask a follow-up question to that, because in my experience, including my own ignorance and naive takes, there's still plenty of that. There is a difference in survival, recovery, etc. for and net effect of being abused as a child, depending on the severity of the abuse. And severity we could qualify too, but are you willing to share more detail about what the molestation looks like so that other people who hear can identify
Sure.
or not identify with
Sure.
where your recovery is taking you?
Sure. It's that's a hard one, but with all the reading that I've done and all the people that I've spoken with, you know, every situation is individual and everyone is different. And sometimes when I look back at my abuse and I then hear other stories of what some other women have been through, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know, what I've experienced is nothing compared to some of these women who have been molested by many family members, who have, you know, been raped, sodomized, you know, you name it. For me, it was never a full penetration. How I recall the situations was my brother would take me into this area of the farm where there was old farm machinery that was all rusted out, and it was in a line, you know, it was just junk basically. And it was a very treed area. I come from Alberta and there's a lot of prairie, so, you know, there was this huge treed area which was rare on our farm because it was just a lot of flat land. And within this decrepit machinery, there was an old beat-up mattress. And how it got there, why it was there, I don't know. That's where, you know, for some reason, we would end up there, and that's where the abuse took place. Like I said, it was never full penetration, but he would use me as his, I don't even know what you want to call it. I don't know. I was his thing, you know, to relieve himself. And so there was, you know, he would undress me and I was naked, and he would basically relieve himself, penetrating not in me but on top of me, and release himself, and then it was over, and then he would clean me up with whatever debris or leaves of trees that were around us.
I appreciate your openness. One of the reasons that I wanted to ask that question is because we both know people who are suffering from dissociation disorder and multiple personality disorder, and sometimes that sort of abuse, which you mentioned, involves multiple people and multiple family members, and it might even involve religious organizations. And that sometimes has led to, in my observation, has led to more severe disorders as an adult, as a child and an adult, and the recovery looks quite a bit different. Is that your experience?
Well, my brother, I found out years later, was abusing other people within our circle of friends and within our immediate family. And then I've even most recently learned of him, even though, I'll back this up, he died of a heroin overdose when he was 27, but I've learned even within the last 6 months that there were other members of the family, even into his 20s, that he was sexually abusing, and had friends taking advantage of them as well.
Were they always children?
They were not always young children. They were children in their teenage years, and yeah.
One of the things that I sometimes evoke a really angry response, so I'm just going to warn you up front, is if we talk about Jimmy for just a couple minutes, what it means to your recovery to be dealing with your, I believe you said he's your half-brother, he's not your full-blood brother. what that means, and then what about Jimmy and how Jimmy got to a place that he was abusing people, especially very young children like yourself. How does that play into your recovery, and what are your feelings about Jimmy today?
Well, that's a loaded question. It's been said so many times, but I'll say it again. It's usually those people that we have a great relationship with. It can be, in many cases, those people that we trust, that we look up to, that we feel loved by, that we're paid attention to, and Jimmy was certainly that. He was the older brother. There were 5 kids in my family. He was the eldest of the 5 of us, and he was the one that took care of us on the family farm when, my parents had to go and spend a day in town doing chores or whatever the case may be. He was the caretaker. He was the caregiver. And I was under his care when my parents were off the farm. And he, was my favorite brother. Why? Probably because he was the one that paid the most attention to me. My other brothers were just, they were bullies. They were typical brothers. I had 3 of them. And he was the one that made me feel special when my parents were busy, running the ranch, the farm, when they were busy doing their own thing, when they were busy trying to function in their own dysfunction. And so that was hard, because what he did to me was something that has affected me up and will for the rest of my life. I know that's one part of the question. What was the other part?
Jimmy himself, if we could focus on just him.
Right.
Did you have a common mother or father?
Right. Yes.
And then what got him to a place that he was abusing people?
Right. Yes, we had, our mother was common. And my mother had been married to her first husband, and she had 3 boys. And that husband, her first husband, committed suicide. So there was a lot going on in that home, and I'm more than positive that Jimmy must have been sexually abused to then see, how many people's lives he's affected, and that's only the ones that I know. But I never felt that he was a half brother, because I was 10 years younger. To me, he was always my big brother who I loved, and and at that young age, I didn't understand, he's only your half brother. I just understood, he was my brother, and he was my favorite brother. When I started coming to terms with what he had done and connecting the feelings to what he had done, for me, I suppose, was a gift in a way, because it all started coming to the surface once he had passed away. It was a much safer place for me to come to once he had gone. And both of my parents had gone as well, because my father committed suicide when I was 11, and my mother died of cancer when I was 15. And then he died when I was 17. So it was around that time, after these people, who were my caregivers, who were my parents, after all those 3 people were gone, that's when when things came to the surface, and I could recall things and know that this was the truth.
Does it help at all for you in your recovery and your peace of mind to look back through the family tree and see that there might be an explanation for why Jimmy behaved that way?
Yeah, the more that I've been around and the more I've grown to know about this whole area, I just look back and I think there must have been something very traumatic that took place in his young life. I recall my mother always talking about him as this wild kid. So from a very young age, there was something about him, and who knows if he was alive today and had been diagnosed when he was young. Who knows what he had. But there's definitely a part of me that is very saddened. Walking through this journey has given me a compassion for those who are the perpetrators. I've done a fair bit of ministry in prisons, and our prison system, it's full, it's rampant of so many men who are who have been sexually abused themselves, and and are now so broken and messed up and hurting themselves.
It seems there is quite a bit of sadness to go around, and if you take the time to consider Jimmy or other perpetrators and what might have brought them to that situation, it does not excuse their behavior, but it does often explain it. And that can be an important part of recovery. It seems like, from my experience, that can be an important moment, one of the defining moments of recovery. So tell me, you were talking about your own recovery, and that you may have been a teenager, it may have been one of your good friends that you first, as the memories started to come back, that you first shared that you had been abused as a child. What happens next? So what does your life look like next? Maybe begin by addressing your fondness for Jimmy as a caregiver, and did that then imprint you in a way that you sought out adult relationships that were equally troubled? They may have also had the positive caregiving part going on, but did you go out and seek to resolve these issues by finding counterparts to you and matches to Jimmy?
Wow, that's a good question, Richard. I think I probably did, not knowingly. The first person that really became that caregiver that I looked to was actually my first husband. But that relationship right from the beginning was doomed because he was from a very messed up background as well, and couldn't even tell me that he loved me, and yet he was very nurturing, very caring. He filled all those places that I was needing to be filled. And like I've just mentioned earlier, because I lost both of my parents at a young age, I was very hungry for mentoring and parenting and being loved. After my father passed away, my mother remarried, and she married who I call the wicked stepfather. Then when my mother passed away, he remarried. So I had these step-parents, but they didn't know how to parent. And my stepfather was very verbally, emotionally, mentally abusive. So the first person that I gravitated to was the caregiver, but he also had those same characteristics of my stepfather. So it's kind of like a double whammy. I've got the person who is taking care of me, which probably is an extension of my brother Jimmy, but I've got this husband who also is very emotionally abusive. And that first marriage did not work out. I was with him for 13 years, married for 10, but I was still very, very much a victim for many years into that relationship.
I've been holding on to a secret, the deep, dark kind that you keep inside. All of my life I've been so mixed up, tried to run but I just can't hide. Every day when I look in the mirror, I can't believe all the faces I see. I feel stained and I feel dirty, but soap and water never washed me clean.